Hey everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. Get ready, because we are diving head first into a truly epic story of survival and absolute resilience. We're talking about a narrative that spans millennia and literally defies how empires are supposed to work. Usually, right, when a massive power falls, it's done. It just becomes a dusty relic in a history book. But today, we're looking at the ultimate exception, the Phoenix of Nations, Iran's eternal resurgence. This isn't just some boring timeline of dates and names. It's the wild, captivating saga of a nation that flat out refused to vanish. Okay, I want you to picture something for a second. Imagine a country falling, not just once or twice, but thousands of times over thousands of years. Picture a massive, glorious empire right at the absolute peak of its power, suddenly burning to ashes. Imagine the relentless drumbeat of war, the total destruction, and the enemies standing right there over the ruins, totally convinced that everything is finished. They look at the devastation and believe with absolute certainty that they've wiped this civilization off the map for good. But seriously, what actually happens when an empire burns to ashes? Normally, you just get silence. The ashes blow away, and the rest of the world kind of just moves on. But the story we're unpacking today breaks all the rules. What happens when those ashes aren't the end, but actually a beginning? What happens when a civilization hits its absolute rock bottom, only to transform into a phoenix? Every single time the fire swept through, every time the silence threatened to take over, this nation stirred. It is a crazy cycle of destruction and breathtaking rebirth that honestly just defies logic. Section 1. The Dawn of the Phoenix. So where do we even start a story like this? We gotta go back to a time of absolute conquerors, starting with one seriously remarkable guy who set the standard for everything that followed, Cyrus the Great. Now, look at the stark contrast. On one side, you have the world of swords. Back in the ancient world, ruling by violence, force, and pure terror was completely normal. It was standard operating procedure. You conquer a place, you crush it. But then look at the other side. The way of respect. Cyrus wasn't your typical warlord. He pioneered a totally different kind of power. He figured out how to actually win the hearts of the people he conquered, ruling by granting freedom and showing respect, which, in a world completely dominated by the sword, was totally revolutionary. Like when Cyrus captured the massive city of Babylon, he did the unthinkable. There was no massacre. None. Instead, he freed the captives and genuinely worked to win over the locals. He essentially drafted the ancient world's very first charter of human rights, what we call the Cyrus Cylinder today. He built an empire on justice and unprecedented power, and that golden age created this incredibly deep-rooted cultural identity. But he was exactly that foundation of respect that was about to get tested in the most horrific way imaginable. Section 2. Ashes of an Empire. Now, history shows us that no power lasts forever, no matter how fair it is. Right as the nation reached its absolute peak, a massive shadow fell over the world. That era of peace and stability was about to get violently shattered, and the storm that broke it had a name you definitely know: Alexander the Great. Coming from the West, he was young, incredibly fast, and just completely ruthless. He swept through the known world with this shocking speed that left ancient powers totally paralyzed. He didn't care about the way of respect. He brought the world of swords back, and he brought it back with a vengeance. The absolute peak of this ruthless campaign brings us to one of history's most tragic scenes. Persepolis, the stunning, magnificent heart of the empire, went up in flames. Imagine the roaring fire destroying centuries of art and culture, followed by this sudden, deafening silence. The whole world looked at those smoldering ruins and collectively thought, that's it. Iran is finished. It really seemed like this grand story had reached a permanent, devastating end. Section 3. The First Resurrection. But here is where our explainer takes a massive turn. The ashes of Persepolis were cold. The conquerors took their victory lap, but they fundamentally misunderstood the land they had just burned. Because deep underground, the roots of that ancient identity, they were still very much alive. Let's trace this crazy cycle of death and rebirth. We start at point 1, the era of Cyrus, the absolute peak. Then point 2, that huge, seemingly fatal plunge during Alexander's conquest, the fall. But then, point 3, the Sassanid return. This is the rebirth. When the whole world counted them out, a brand new dynasty sprang from that very same soil to take back their destiny. And the Sassanids didn't just barely survive, they brought the nation roaring back to life. Under leaders like Khosrow Parvis, this fallen realm was painstakingly pulled back to power. They didn't just rebuild cities, they sparked a massive golden age of art and medicine that the entire Eastern world envied. They revived their ancient traditions and proved once and for all that foreign swords couldn't permanently put out the fire of their civilization.
Section 4. Survival through the pen.
But, the cycle of history never really stops. Just as the Sassanids restored the empire's glory, a completely new kind of threat showed up. This time, it wasn't just about their borders. It was a profound wave that threatened their very soul. The battleground was shifting from physical warfare to a fight for cultural survival. So let's break down the anatomy of this cultural rebirth. Step 1. A new wave arrives with Islam, and the empire faces military defeat. The armies fall. But step 2. They completely refuse to lose their cultural identity. The military armor broke, sure, but their cultural armor was impenetrable. And that leads to step 3, the triumphant return of the Persian language. They realize that you don't always need swords to fight. Sometimes, your absolute greatest weapon is your voice.
Which brings us to a quote that really deserves a moment of reverence. If it weren't for Ferdowsi, perhaps many things would be forgotten. When the old world was crumbling and the language was at serious risk of fading away, Ferdowsi stepped up. He wasn't a general, he was a poet. For 30 grueling years, he poured his entire life into writing the Shahnameh, this epic history of his people. He literally breathed vibrant life back into their ancient past when military might had completely failed them.
So the huge takeaway here is this. Culture itself became their ultimate survival mechanism. The Persian language lived on, and it carried the memories, the values, and the very soul of the people. This was their greatest act of resurrection yet. They proved that as long as a nation's language and voice survive, you can never truly conquer them. It was a spectacular victory of the pen over the sword, locking in their identity for centuries to come.
Section 5. The Reunited Rome.
Now, fast forward through centuries of messy fragmentation and shifting powers. All those scattered pieces of this resilient civilization were just waiting for the right moment to snap back into a singular powerhouse. And that reunification brings us to a city that became an absolute legend, Isfahan. Under Shah Abbas the Great, Isfahan became the vibrant, beating heart of a reunited country. It was so dazzlingly beautiful and culturally rich. Just look at the stark reality of this contrast. On one side, you've got centuries of fragmentation, struggle, and literal ashes that they had to endure. But on the other side, you have a nation standing firmly on its own 2 feet again. Under Shah Abbas, all that instability was replaced by profound strength and self-reliance. The cycle had completed itself once more. From complete and total ruin, they had built a society that was the absolute envy of the modern world. Section 6. An unending story. When we step back and look at this incredible timeline, from Cyrus to the fires of Alexander, the Sassanid revival, the cultural save by Ferdowsi, all the way to the reunification under Shah Abbas, you realize we're looking at something profoundly unique in human history. We are looking at a civilization moving eternally between 2 immense forces, the past and the future. Iran isn't just a geographical spot on a map, it's a living, breathing story. It's a nation constantly navigating its deep, ancient roots while continuously barreling toward its destiny. It draws immense strength from what it used to be, just so it can survive whatever is coming next. And that leaves us with a really profound, lingering question to think about. What is the next chapter for a story that fails thousands of times, but never truly ends? Because a nation that masters the art of returning from the ashes has a spirit that just cannot be broken. It's a truly spectacular testament to human resilience. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer today. Keep questioning, keep exploring, and I'll catch you in the next one.